Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. Today, we are tackling a specific frustration that I think haunts pretty much every intermediate language learner out there. It's that feeling of hitting a wall. You know the one. You're doing the input, you're watching movies, you're on the app, studying grammar, but your actual ability to speak, especially when the pressure is on, just feels frozen. It's the invisible progress plateau.
It's the classic gap, right? The
Yeah.
gap between competence and performance. You have the knowledge in your head, but you just can't get it out of your mouth.
Exactly. And the usual advice is just go speak more, go find a partner. But today, we're going to challenge that a little. We're exploring a method that argues speaking more might actually be, inefficient if you're doing it wrong. We're looking at a system designed to turn speaking from this vague talent you hope improves by magic into a trackable, data-driven skill.
And the best part, it takes about 10 minutes a week. You don't even need a speaking partner. And I mean, you can do it in your pajamas.
We're going to cover why your casual chats with native speakers might actually be hurting your progress. And then we're going to break down a specific 4-step feedback loop. To make sure you remember it, we're using the mnemonic RLRC.
That's the key. R, record, to establish the baseline. L, listen, to audit, not to judge. R, redo, to fix just one variable. And C, compare, to prove the win.
RLRC. We are going to unpack that step by step. But first, let's talk about the premise here, because it's a bit, it's controversial. The idea that if you want to get better at speaking, you should stop relying on conversations for feedback.
It sounds totally backwards, doesn't it?
Okay.
Because the holy grail of language learning is immersion. We're told to go find a native speaker, grab a coffee, and just chat.
Right. That's the dream. So why is that a bad feedback loop for improvement?
It's bad because of something called the social contract of politeness. When you and I are talking right now, my main goal is to connect with you. I want to hear your ideas. I'm not listening to audit your grammar or your pronunciation.
You aren't sitting there with a red pen.
Exactly. If you say something and the pronunciation is, say, 20% off, or you use the wrong tense, but I get the gist of it, I'm going to nod, I'm going to smile, I'm going to fill in the blanks for you because I want the conversation to keep going. I don't want to interrupt the flow.
So the native speaker they're unconsciously smoothing over the potholes in my speech just to be nice.
Precisely. Unless you are paying a really strict tutor to stop you every 3 seconds, which, let's be honest, is annoying for everyone. It just kills the vibe. You aren't getting data. You're getting social validation. You walk away thinking, hey, I did great. We understood each other. But you might have just reinforced a fossilized error 10 times in that one conversation.
That is such a light bulb moment. You think you're practicing, but you're actually just cementing bad habits because nobody wants to be rude enough to correct you.
To improve, you don't need a friend. You need a mirror. You need something that reflects the reality of your voice back to you objectively without that social filter.
And that's what we're centering on today, the voice notes drill.
Yeah.
It's about shifting from a subjective feeling like, I hope I sounded okay, to objective evidence.
Right. Think about it. When you are in the middle of speaking a second language, your brain is doing 50 things at once. You're thinking of vocabulary, sentence structure, social cues, eye contact, did I leave the stove on? You physically do not have the bandwidth to critique your own pronunciation in real time. You have to separate the performance from the analysis.
Which brings us to the RLRC loop. The promise here is that this takes 10 minutes. I want to pressure test that because most quick fixes in language learning are, nonsense. Walk us through the first step, our record.
Step 1 is the baseline. You need raw data. You take your phone, you open the Voice Notes app, every phone have one, and you just speak for exactly 60 seconds.
What are we talking about? Do we need to write a script first?
No script. If you read a script, you're practicing reading aloud, not speaking. It has to be spontaneous. And to avoid sitting there for 20 minutes wondering what to say, just use a generic prompt. What did I do yesterday? Or explain a problem I'm solving at work. Simple stuff.
Okay, so I hit record. I'm 30 seconds in talking about my lunch, and suddenly I stumble. I forget the word for sandwich. Do I stop? Do I start over?
Absolutely not. And this is probably the most critical rule of the record phase. You do not cut. You keep the tape rolling.
Why, I mean, if I've messed up, isn't the data corrupted?
No, that is the data. In the real world, you don't get a delete button.
Yeah.
You don't get to say, sorry, can we take that from the top? Fluency isn't about never making mistakes. It's about how smoothly you recover from them. If you stop every time you stumble in practice, you're training your brain to just bail out whenever things get hard. We need to train that recovery muscle.
So you grit your teeth, you talk around the missing word, and you finish the minute.
Exactly.
Huh.
Even if it's a disaster, you capture the disaster.
Okay, so I have a messy 60-second voice note. I'm probably sweating a little bit. Now we move to step 2. I'll listen. And I have to say, this is where most people quit. The cringe factor of hearing your own voice it's visceral. It's physically painful.
It is. It really is. We actually hear our own voices differently through our skull bones than through the air, so the recording sounds alien and thin to us. But you have to push through that emotional reaction to get to the analytical one.
So how do we shift from, "Ugh, I hate my voice," to something actually useful?
You change your hat. You
Oh.
take off the performer hat and you put on the coach hat.
Mhm.
You are listening for 3 specific metrics. We aren't just listening for good or bad.
Yeah.
We're auditing for clarity, speed, and confidence.
Let's drill down on those. Clarity seems obvious. Can I understand the words? But what about speed? Usually people want to be faster.
In this context, speed is usually a negative metric. Most intermediate learners rush because they equate speed with fluency. They think, if I talk fast like a native, I'll sound native.
Yeah.
But usually they just sound manic and, mumbled. So you're checking, was I rushing? Did I sound like a runaway train?
And confidence, that feels a bit subjective.
It can be measured by the gaps, or these long, painful silences filled with and ah. Does the voice kind of trail off at the end of sentences like it's a question? You just make brief notes, rushed the middle section, said 10 times, mumbled the conclusion. That's the audit.
Okay, so we have our diagnosis. We know what's broken. Step 3 is our redo. Now, my instinct here would be to record it again and again, again and again until it's perfect. But the methodology has a really strict constraint here.
The magic rule of the redo. You record it again only once.
Just once. That seems counterproductive. If I do it 10 times, won't the 10th one be better?
It might be better, sure, but you won't do it next week. If you turn this into an hour-long ordeal of perfectionism, you will burn out. You'll dread doing it. The goal isn't a perfect recording. The goal is a better recording. So you pick one thing, just one thing from your audit notes.
Just one variable to fix.
Just one. If you noticed you were mumbling, your only goal for take 2 is enunciate. If you noticed you were saying, too much, your only goal is silence instead of fillers. You ignore the grammar errors, you ignore the other stuff, you just focus on that one lever.
I like that. It reduces the cognitive load. You aren't trying to fix your English.
Yeah.
You're just trying to say, fix the mumbling.
Exactly. You record that second 60-second clip, and that leads us to the final step, step 4. C, compare.
This is the payoff.
This is where the dopamine hits. You play version 1, then you immediately play version 2. And because you focused on that one single variable, version 2 is almost mathematically guaranteed to sound better. You hear the difference.
And that just cuts right through the invisible progress feeling.
It destroys it. You have immediate, irrefutable proof that you can change the way you sound. It stops being a talent you're born with and starts being a mechanism you can actually tune. You realize, oh, I can control this.
That is huge. I want to circle back to the redo step, though. We talked about picking one thing to fix, but I think a lot of listeners might struggle with identifying what exactly to fix. They listen to the recording and just think, it sounds off, but I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a very common issue.
Yeah.
The ear knows it's wrong, but the brain can't label the error. So there's a menu of adjustments we can look at. Basically, 5 specific technical tweaks that solve, I'd say, about 80% of clarity issues for learners.
Let's walk through the menu. This is for when you're stuck and don't know what to correct. What's option A?
Option A is strong sentence endings. This is the #1 clarity killer for non-natives.
What happens? We just run out of breath.
We run out of breath and we run out of confidence. We start the sentence really strong. I went to the store, and then we doubt ourselves, or we're already thinking of the next sentence, so the volume just drops. To buy some apples.
Yeah.
The last word just vanishes into a mumble.
So the fix is just volume.
It's intention. You aim for the period. You make sure the last word is as loud and as clear as the first word. It instantly makes you sound more authoritative. It signals to the listener, I am done speaking.
Okay, so what's option B?
The purposeful pause. This addresses the and ah problem. We use fillers because we are terrified of silence. We think silence means I don't know the word.
It feels like dead air on the radio.
To you, it feels like dead air. To the listener, it sounds like you are thinking. The tweak here is, when you lose a word, shut your mouth. Just count to 1 in your head, then speak.
So replacing the noise with a void.
A confident void. It changes the listener's perception from, this person is struggling, to, this person is thoughtful.
I suspect option C has to do with the whole robot voice problem.
Yes. Stress key words. English is a stress-timed language, which means the rhythm comes from the contrast between loud, long words and short, quiet words. A lot of learners speak with more of a syllable-timed rhythm da-da-da-da-da. Every syllable gets equal weight.
Which makes it really hard for a native speaker to process. It just sounds monotone.
It's exhausting to listen to. The fix is to identify the content words, usually your nouns and verbs, and punch them, make them louder and longer. Then you take the function words AAG of,
Yeah.
chew, and you just crush them, make them tiny.
So instead of I went to the store, it's more like I went to the store.
Exactly. It adds the melody. It sounds musical instead of mechanical.
And what about option D?
Slow down 10%. And note the specificity. We aren't saying speak in slow motion. Just stretch your vowels slightly. This gives your brain the processing time it needs to find the next word before your mouth gets there. It prevents the stumbling.
And finally, option E. This one caused a bit of a laugh when we reviewed the notes, but it's actually rooted in anatomy.
The cleaner mouth. Or, more accurately, open your mouth.
It sounds so basic, like something your mother would tell you.
But watch people speak a second language. They often get what I call locked jaw. They're nervous, so they tighten their face muscles. They try to speak English through a tiny slit in their lips. The sound gets trapped inside their head.
Like a ventriloquist.
Exactly. And ventriloquists are hard to understand. The fix is physical. You exaggerate the lip movements. You force your jaw open. It feels ridiculous, like you're making a funny face, but on the recording, it sounds crystal clear.
So that's the menu. If you don't know what to fix, pick one of those 5. Now, let's zoom out a bit. We have the loop record, listen, redo, compare, and we have the fixes. But how do we sustain this? Because the novelty of recording yourself wears off pretty fast.
You have to gamify it. If you don't track it, you won't stick to it. And there's a simple scoring system you can use.
We're rating ourselves.
Yes. After you do your compare step, you open a note on your phone and you give yourself a score from 1 to 10 on those 3 metrics. Clarity, speed, confidence.
But this is subjective, though, right? My 7 might be different from your 7.
It doesn't matter. It's relative to you. Maybe in week 1, you rate your confidence as a 3. You see that number. By week 4, you realize, hey, I didn't say once. That's a 6. You're tracking the delta, the change.
It fits into that whole philosophy of small jumps.
Right. We overestimate what we can do in a day, and we underestimate what we can do in a month. You aren't trying to jump from a 3 to a 10. You are trying to jump from a 3 to a 4. And that is sustainable.
I want to address the psychological barriers a bit more. We talked about the cringe factor, but what about the blank page syndrome? I hit record, the clock is ticking, and my mind just goes empty. I don't know what to say.
This is usually because we try to be interesting. We think we need to tell a funny anecdote. You don't. You just need a structure that removes the cognitive load of content creation so you can focus on language production.
There's a narrative formula we found that solves this. Past, problem, solution, lesson.
It works for almost any prompt. Let's say the prompt is, what did you do at work? Past. I started a report. Problem. The data was corrupted. Solution. I had to call IT. Lesson. I learned to back up my files.
And that's your 60 seconds right there.
And you didn't have to be creative. You just filled in the boxes. It keeps the story on rails, so your brain is free to focus on pronunciation and grammar.
What about the physical side of nerves? I have a listener question here about the runaway train effect. They start speaking, they get nervous, they speed up, and they can't stop until they run out of breath.
That's a sympathetic nervous system response. It's flight or fight. You're running away from the sentence. There is a tactile hack for this called the finger tap.
And this is something you do while you're recording.
Yes. You place your hand flat on the table. Every time you finish a sentence, you tap your index finger on the table. Hard.
What does that do?
It forces a micropause. You physically cannot start the next sentence until that tap happens. It grounds you. It breaks the momentum of the runaway train and forces a rhythm. It sounds like magic, but it's just biology. You're syncing your speech to a physical movement.
I love that. It's so actionable. Okay, let's pivot to the advanced users. Say I've been doing the RLRC loop for a month. I'm getting comfortable. How do I turbocharge this?
There are 2 upgrades we can talk about. The first is a warm-up called shadowing.
I've heard of shadowing. It's repeating after a podcast.
But doing it simultaneously. You don't listen, pause, repeat. You try to speak the words at the exact same millisecond the speaker does.
That sounds chaotic.
It is. It feels very chaotic. But if you
Yeah.
do it for just 2 minutes before your voice notes drill, it acts as a primer. It gets your mouth moving in the English rhythm. You're
Yes.
essentially calibrating your instrument before you play.
So you're kind of borrowing their melody for a few minutes.
Exactly. And the second upgrade is the weekly voice identity. This touches on the psychology of personality.
Is this where we create an alter ego?
In a way, yeah. Many people feel smaller in their second language. They feel less funny, less smart, more timid. The voice identity drill asks you to record your 60 seconds, imagining you are the most confident person in the room.
So you're acting.
You're acting. You drop your voice an octave, you speak louder, you slow down, you try to embody a commander persona.
What's the benefit, though? It feels fake.
It feels fake at first, but you will listen to the recording and you'll realize, wait, that actually sounds good. That sounds like a native speaker. It proves to your brain that you are capable of producing that sound. And once you know it's possible, you can start integrating pieces of that fake confidence into your real speech.
It's like wearing a costume to see how it fits and then realizing you actually like the jacket.
And eventually, you just keep the jacket.
So let's synthesize this. The key takeaway seems to be agency. You stop waiting for a teacher to correct you. You stop waiting for a native speaker to validate you.
You take ownership. The RLRC loop record, listen, redo, compare, gives you a closed system for improvement. You can do it at 2 in the morning. You can do it in your car. It just removes all the excuses.
And it changes the definition of success. Success isn't speaking perfectly. Success is version 2 is better than version 1.
That's it. It gamifies the marginal gains.
As we wrap up, I want to leave the listeners with a thought on confidence. We so often hear, I'll speak when I'm confident, but the logic here suggests that's backward.
It is completely backward. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action. Confidence is a byproduct of action. You don't wait until you feel ready. You hit record when you feel terrified. And then, when you listen back and hear that you fixed the error, that you have actual proof of competence, that is what creates the confidence. You have to speak to generate the feeling you're looking for.
You have to speak to generate the confidence. I think that's the perfect place to end. Give the RLRC loop a try this week. Just 10 minutes, just 60 seconds. You might be surprised by what you hear. Thanks for listening today, and we'll catch you next time on Chat Like a Native.